This video will show you how to get a repository set up for your CIS 305 web development class. I've already got, from a prior video, a web server folder that I'm serving my web files out of. I want to turn this so that it keeps all of the different versions of the files using a distributed version control system. So in order to do that, I'm going to first start up SourceTree, which I've already got installed. And I'm going to create a new repository. In this case, I'm not cloning an existing repository. I actually want to create a new one. So I'm going to click this tab. And I can either do Git or Mercurial. I'm going to go ahead and choose Mercurial. It's a little bit simpler than Git. You can choose either one. Then select the destination path, which in this case is already selected for me, Users Craven Desktop Web Server. Go ahead and navigate to where you want that to be. Go ahead and bookmark the repository so that it's set up. And here we go. I've got my repository set up. I want this, though, to be accessible by anyone I choose. And for that, I need a server. I'm going to use Bitbucket. You can use Bitbucket or GitHub. Those are the two most popular servers, or you can set up your own server. In our case, we're going to use Bitbucket because it allows us to have private repositories for free, and I really like free. So I'm going to go ahead and click Login. If you don't have an account, sign up. Sign up is over here. If you do need to log in and you already have an account, remember the login's in the upper right corner. You can't use that other screen. I go ahead and log in. I've got my repositories here. I'm going to create a new repository. So I select Repositories, Create Repository. Give it a name. I'm going to call it CIS 305 Test. It's a private repository. I need this to match what I selected before. So I selected Mercurial before. I'm going to continue with that. I'm going to enable issue tracking in a wiki, and the default language here is going to be PHP. Rather straightforward. Create repository. Now there's some different options here for download and other items. The easiest I found is, quite frankly, to copy this URL that I've got up here, then go back over to SourceTree, and underneath repository, select repository settings. I want to add a remote repository for me to push this code to. So I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to paste my URL here. I'm going to select Default Remote for this. So go ahead and let the remote name be default, otherwise it's not going to work. Here's my username. It's Bitbucket. That's already selected for me by default, and it's good. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a file. In this case, I've got test.txt. I don't actually have the ability to add directories. The directory is simply a part of the file name. So chapter 2, there's no files in it. Chapter 1, there is. I've got a test.txt. It is currently not tracked. I hover over this, I can see it's not tracked. I'm going to check that. Go down here to the commit message, put in initial commit, and hit commit. I can, by default, push them to the server, but I'm going to skip that step for now and do it separately. So now it's committed. I can go back, and as I get more and more versions, I'll see all those versions listed here, and I can see what each of the changes were. In this case, Chapter 1 test file was added. Now, I'm going to go ahead and push these changes to the server, hit OK. It's going to grind away for a little while. It has pushed the changes to the server. It might ask you for the password. Once you have the password and save it, then you're good to go. You can just hit push. It's really nice. You don't have to keep re-entering that. And now if we go back to Bitbucket and refresh this, we can see that we've actually created the file. This commit that I've got is over here, and I can take a look at each of the different commits here on the server as well. This is my initial commit, and I can see all the changes that occurred. I added test.txt. It's an empty file, doesn't have anything in it, but you'll see all of your changes there. This will allow anybody else, if you invite them to the repository, to also look to and make edits to your code. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. If I go back up to the main repository, click on Overview, I can send invitation. And if you type in pcraven, you can go ahead and send an invitation to me. Of course, in this case, I already have access to the repository, and add me to the repository so that I can download and take a look at your homework. If you're collaborating with another person, you can invite them to the repository, and you can either do it as a read-only access, they can look at the code but not change it, or you can allow them to also read and change the code. This is the way that you're going to most likely work in groups when you're out in the workforce. I know some of you already are working out in the workforce and use very similar tools, if not the same exact tools. So it's really good practice to use these tools when you're working with your website. The more often you end up committing, the easier it is to go back to select any prior version that you've got in case something breaks. And if you push up to the server, then if your computer freaks out or otherwise accidentally delete the directory, you can always regain those files that you had before.